Hello again, and welcome to the program. I am Suren. I will start with asking the question of continuity of consciousness, the possibility and the reality of communication between that other or the higher dimension and the physical where we dwell. Once upon a time, F.W.H. Myers was an English poet and essayist who also became a classical lecturer at the Trinity College, Cambridge, in 1865. In 1882, with Professor Henry Sidgwick, Sir William Barrett, and Edmund Gurney, he founded the Society for Psychical Research in Great Britain. He died in January 1901. Geraldine Cummins was an automatist or automatic writer. She was the person doing the writing. In the language of psychical research. And the alleged communicator, who was the late Myers, describing her as the interpreter. What is being dictated and interpreted in her writings were purported to originate from a different dimension that is invisible to humanity. She was an Irish hockey player and had no education in science or psychology, but was highly interested in literature. Neither was she a professional channeler, or a medium if you like. She has written novels, and her novels were The Land They Loved and Fires of Beltane. They have been produced as Irish folk plays at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. She wrote various psychic works as well, and experimented in automatic writing, thus proving that this is a real and genuine phenomenon. Thus, late Sir Edward Marshall Hall that is, was convinced of survival after the so-called death. He stated, "I was and am convinced that there is an existence beyond the so-called death." Is it therefore possible that some people are able to tune in to higher frequencies and that the so-called dead may communicate with the physical existence that they had left, meaning, as Sir Edward claimed, "It is my emphatic belief, after 25 years of close study of automatic writing, that the dead are not extinct, and given certain conditions, they are able to speak with those still on earth?" That is a good question. Miss Cummins was a very remarkable automatic writer and a channeler, or a medium if you like. The messages she included in her books confirm the survival of human consciousness after the incidence of death. Not only have facts been given which were known at the time of her writing and were equally verified. She has reproduced the characteristics of speech and personality traits of those she never met. She actually sat at a table, covering her eyes with her left hand and concentrating on stillness. She describes the result of such concentration as follows. And soon I am in a condition of half sleep, a kind of dream state that yet, and in its peculiar way, has more illumination than one's waking state. I have at times distinct sensation of a dreamer who has no conscious creative county over the ideas that are formulated in words. I am a mere listener. It is hard to put it into words. I have the consciousness that my brain is being used by a stranger. Whatever intelligence is operating, it may use my subconscious mind as an interpreter and may communicate in the language of thoughts or images and not of words alone. Alleged communicators from the unseen frequently assert that language used by them is conveyed by thought. It is the thought that is thrown, as it were, into the interpreter's inner mind, and it finds the words that express it. Following quotation may be, just may be, of some interest. It was written by the alleged Myers on the second occasion on which he purported to write through Miss Cummins. The inner mind seems to deal with from this side. We apparently impress it with our message, but we never impress the brain of the medium directly. That is out of question. But the inner mind receives our message and sends it into the brain. The brain is a mere mechanism. It is like soft wax. It receives our thoughts, their whole content, but it must produce the words to cover it. That is what makes cross correspondence so very difficult. We may succeed in sending the thought through, but the actual words depend largely upon that of the inner mind's content, on what words will frame the thought. We communicate an impression through the inner mind of the medium, who is the interpreter. It receives the impression in a curious but a magnificent way. It now has to contribute to the body of the message. We furnish the spirit of it. We send the thoughts and the words usually in which they must be somewhat framed. But the actual letters or spelling of the words are drawn from the medium's memory bank. This explanation seems to indicate that communications purporting to come from the unseen world must be in the form of a collaboration between communicator and the channeler. Therefore, the quality of the messages will depend partly on the culture and the vocabulary of the mind and brain through which the alleged entity or being is working. Naturally, it follows that if a human mind of limited ability is employed by a cultured communicator, the said communicator would experience difficulties in conveying to Earth the exact translation of his thoughts. This explanation accounts for the confusion of ideas which sometimes reputed to reach us from another world, and which fail to convince the public in general of the reality of the survival of human personality. Reference has already been made to the speed at which the writing comes. A few further details concerning its production may be of some interest. Obviously, descriptions of the life after death have been given through various channels, but these are frequently condemned by some as being too materialistic in character and bearing too great resemblance to the earthian existence. They may therefore seem to be unacceptable to a large population. The alleged communicator particularly states that it is not infallible and that he endeavors to write of the truth as I perceive it. Several individuals and organizations claimed that communion between this incarnate world and the human beings has been disproved because all engaged pronouncements have been non-significant. However, that is a personal belief, and one must understand that there are no ridiculous or non-significant, not even trivial subjects of the subliminal self has been studied and surely reviewed the actuality in this matter. Indeed, thoroughly. It would be hard to find more important matter, meaning constitution of man into beyond, and when the physics of ether is better known and understood, much of what is said will fall into sequence. There is no reason to suppose that the functions of the psychic are less complicated than those of the physical. On further note, one thing is certain, that one can recognize the truth when one sees it, and logically, when all the proof becomes available, it becomes a necessary scientific research for those eager to discover the reality in more depth. Metaphysics, therefore, remains a logical system under study. It is also claimed that the thinking minds find it extraordinarily interesting. They need to be recognized as almost the very first attempt to trace the age-long pressing or progression of the human soul in the unseen dimensions. There are many scripts which I consider as totally different from the style of the numerous other channeling interviews or sessions, and discovered that those who are no longer with us, endeavoring to demonstrate their survival through various psychics and other means, such as the radio or electronic communication, as with mobile phones, for instance. When referring to human personality, we will discover some very noteworthy descriptions, such as polyzoic, polypsychic, metaetheric, telasthesia, etc. We must ultimately realize that in automatic writing, as it was with supernormal writing, there is no chance for correction or rewriting it immediately. As it was remote controlled, these have to be written on haste and must necessarily be crude due to difficulties in communication, and the whole communication is, in fact, dependent on the channelers or mediums or the interpreter's mind. Is there any reference about automatic writing in the Bible? 1 Chronicles 28:19 reads, "All this said David, the Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me, even the works of this pattern." In 2 Chronicles chapter 21:12 we read, "And there came a writing to him from Elijah the prophet." When examining the New Testament for any evidence of psychic phenomena, we might be truly surprised. Acts chapter 9, verse 2 records the communication of the name of a strait and the name of a man living in it that were given to Ananias in a vision. Similar cases keep on occurring from time to time in relation to psychic phenomena. We also know that a number of other obscure passages from the Bible can be explained in the same light through referential, well-attested instances in current psychic investigation. Many interesting speculations exist today about, and even very few people have attempted to talk about, why man was created in the first instance, and why in the cosmos nothing is lost. Seemingly everything is immortal, but constantly changing in their looks. Vast, purposeless creation, it seems, as some scientists put it. Some even believe that matter is the only reality, a purposeless, mechanical drama of motion and existence, playing on forever and ever. But the truth is far from it all, and may be classified as very remote. However, when we can accept that the mind and intelligence is as existing apart from matter, we will most certainly have the prospect of discovering the reason for strange dreams or the fantasy of life. Primarily, one needs to be able to define it in a few short words. Then we will be able to attempt to solve the puzzle of infinity. Consider the following. Matter, antimatter, material substance and their shadows or reflections, manifestation and the source, the unifying principle and the creator, disintegration in materials, in ever finer substances, reunification in the spirit or the ethereal domain. Deeper mind nourishes the journeying souls with its light, probably as a thought of the Supreme Being, or God, if you like. This thought is not considered in the human sense, as it has a certain degree of separation from its originator, created but exterior from the one who gave it life. The term God needs to be understood here as the supreme mind, the prime idea behind all known life. Wholeness in terms of pure thought. A wholeness cradled between the Alpha and Omega of existence as a mental concept. Everything known is included within that wholeness, wherein is the original concept of all. These ideas, concepts, all the spirits are begotten by the mighty thought and idea which differ from one another, many of which are manifested in matter and are crude, like innocent and incomplete embryos. They need to gather innumerable experiences, manifest or express themselves in forms before attaining the completion, before knowing the perfect wisdom and true reality. Once all is acquired, the divine attributes, they can be passed on to yonder, blending with the supreme thought and the idea, becoming part of the whole. Isn't it interesting that it seems the reason of the joys and tragedies of human species can be summed up as the evolution of the spirit? Only through manifestations the spirit matures. This seems in all accounts to be the truth, as can be observed within the entire universe, let alone the world we occupy. What is then the purpose of existence, you might ask? It can be summed up as the evolution of mind in matter that varies in degrees, so that the mind develops through manifesting in the variety of forms in an ever-expanding universe, increasing in power and gaining the true conception of reality. Unending numbers of thoughts, expressions in spirit forms, informing with life and all material forms, so far the lowest manifests of the Supreme One, needing to learn to become an effective part of the whole. With that, I wish you the very best life can offer you, and a very happy new year. Smile, be happy, and we shall meet again here on this channel. Thank you.